just last year in a Wall Street Journal article titled, "America's Young Men Are Falling Even Further Behind," journalist Rachel Wolf decided to follow a family of 6, the Morenos. All in all, a normal family. The thing was, while their only daughter recently graduated from business school and got engaged, her 3 brothers, well into adulthood, are still living with their parents in their childhood bedrooms. When the father was asked about the situation, he stated, quote, "Something is amiss here. We love them. We love having them around. But that's not how you build your life." End quote. When they asked one of the sons, Daniel, if he shared this concern, he said, quote, "I just felt so lost. Nothing is really stopping me. It's just myself standing in my own way." End quote. For Daniel, a lot of this had to do with COVID. A loss of connection with his friends led him to drop out of school and become aimless. A study in 2021 by the Survey Center on American Life found that only 26% of men reported having 6 or more close friends. In 1990, it was 55%. And in 2021, those who had 0 friends was 15%. In 1990, it was 3.4%. That's a 500% increase in men with 0 friends since 1990. Research also shows that women tend to invest more in maintaining their friendships than men do, so female friendship rates tend to be higher. But while COVID may have made many men drift apart, something else is going on here. COVID will cause everyone to start feeling behind, and also not in the same way. The percentage of men living at home between the ages of 25 and 34 has virtually doubled since the 1980s. So what gives? Well, rising house prices are an obvious factor in the West, so there's less shame in living in a generational household, but it goes deeper. Regardless of affiliation, the broader consensus over the last 2 to 5 years appears to be that traditionally male-dominated industries like manufacturing are shrinking, while service industries are reaching all-time highs around the world. And those sectors are the ones that men are traditionally trained to excel in. That's the statistical reality puts young men at a disadvantage. That's not all. Traditionally male-dominated fields are more commonly accepting of women. Ultimately, that's a good thing, but it does provide extra competition for men.
And women looking for a job or even a career are discovering there is a whole new world out there.
As it turns out, roles traditionally filled by men now being offered to women. Here's 3 on your sides.
This has made a successful career for herself.
I love physical work.
You may find Adrian Donato 30 feet above the ground, welding and using a handheld jackhammer. He was working the same company through 2 pregnancies.
They were very supportive.
Iron workers are just one of many fields now trying to make it. They just announced a new paid maternity benefit.
They're gonna make good money. Benefits go along with it. We'll have the health insurance and a pension plan.
In the world of dating, things are changing for young men too. When it comes to dating, for many Gen Z men, they can practically kiss that goodbye. In the US, for example, during the 1970s and 80s, the percentage of men who weren't married by age 40 were in the single digits. But by 2021, that had ballooned to 28%. As young men struggle to excel in life, they tend to appear less attractive to a lot of women. Word on the street is that young women just can't find a good man anymore, so many quit dating. The culture has also shifted. According to the Washington Post, the Me Too movement of the mid-2010s was meant to be reluctant to date in real life for fear of being perceived as a threat.
We're going to talk about this phenomenon of men not approaching women when they're out, when they're at the coffee place, when they're at the workplace. It's, I guess, just a plague upon society that is impacting young women right now who want to be approached and who want a little bit of attention to be paid to them. In the age group of 18 to 25, for young men, around 50% of them say they have never approached a woman, not once, not ever.
All
Now,
puppets
when
must
asked
die.
why they can't find this
You can't
drive
fool
to
me.
do so, most of them
All
are
puppets
expressing that they don't
must
want to
die.
be seen as a
Kill
creep
the puppets.
or be accused of sexual harassment in the wake of this whole movement.
I wish I'd known.
That being said, I've heard and seen a lot of stories about how young men behave out there, and they're really not helping me.
I have only gone from like control to like hell level destruction. This guy at the gas station comes up to me. He is smoking a cigarette, blows the smoke in my face. I really want to hang out with you tonight. I said, oh.
So like most things, there's 2 sides to this. Reduced only to dating rooms, men tried their luck.
I wish I hadn't run away.
It's been a rough game. Each woman would thousands of dollars, while it's not unusual for a man to struggle for days and not receive anything. As for the last layer in a sandwich of bad misfortune, there's also a firm political polarization between the genders. Gen Z men are more conservative, while Gen Z women are more liberal. The end result is a sign of gender conflict, and more young men end up being
Surviving is a
single.
terrible zone.
Even the men that are doing better, the ones that are out of the house, possibly married, and building families, is still remarkably similar. As Richard Reeves puts it, quote, "The sense a lot of young men have is to ensure that they're needed, always surrounded by their families, by their communities, by society," end quote. These people are now struggling more than ever to find a driving force and find meaning. They are losing
I'd
a sense
known.
of purpose. Around 2016,
Surviving is a
the
hell of a
dialogue
zone.
around young men and a loss of sense of purpose started to gain traction. In the Western world, it was initially expressed by the confusion in why figures like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan were suddenly popular among young men. A decade ago, these online personalities, which was routinely overlooked as a target audience, male role models for young men. The online spheres they created provided direction to young men who found themselves aimless in a rapidly changing world. The conversation took on a more academic flavor in 2022. He published his findings in his book, Boys and Men. It highlighted a disparity that he had to research to believe. At the same time, another author, Scott Galloway, started touring the country with a similar message. His emphasis, though, was on later education, employment, and dating as an adult. When on a podcast by Chris Williamson, the open statistics he shared were pretty revealing.
I have friends who have 2 daughters and a son. And I'm saying this metaphorically, but loosely speaking, the daughters at Penn, the younger daughters working at a PR firm in Chicago, and the son is in their basement vaping and playing video games. Young men, 7 to 10 high school valedictorians or girls. For every 1 male college graduate over the next 5 years, there's going to be 2 female college graduates. 93% of mass shooters are men, 3 times more likely to get overdose, 4 times more likely to commit suicide, 12 more times more likely to be incarcerated. They do worse in single parent. For some reason, boys have the same outcomes in a dual parent household versus a single. We have more single-parent households. Our education system is biased against men. Men on a behavior-adjusted course, boys on a behavior-adjusted course are twice as likely to get suspended for the same infraction as a girl. 2/3, 80% of all primary and secondary teachers are women, and understandably, they're going to champion the girls who they see themselves in.
Galloway also explains that the lack of attention to impulse control in young men borders on criminal neglect. Not only that, but according to both Reeves and Galloway, this lack of focus is all but an equal sex opportunity system, placing an 18-year-old male next to an 18-year-old female for a job or college application puts men at an immediate disadvantage.
Yeah, the delta I've heard, that's striking. The delta I've heard is 2, even if you think about 2 years, which basically you have 2 18-year-old people applying to college. Basically, the 18-year-old is competing against the 16-year-old. So imagine you're in 10th grade applying to college.
Ooh,
And all the
admirers seem to follow me. Pleased to
That's-
see you, my
that's what we're
stalker
facing.
friend.
You made it all the way here
Disparity has
unbothered
doubled
by
the number of
ruffians.
stay-at-home fathers,
This
which
may
not
well
sound like a
benefit.
totally
Did you
bad thing,
catch that subtle
but there's
whiff?
a
You
lot
caught
of
us
men
on our
that
return
aren't
trip.
happy with
Keep
their
your
situation.
whiskers up.
In search of answers,
Well,
it
any-
opens the door to troubling
Best of
influences
luck
by
to you.
online gurus. It wasn't unusual to see younger males, married or not, being told to reclaim masculinity through affairs, mistreating their partners and spouses, and even walking away from traditional responsibilities.
People when things aren't going well for them. And so, what do the most violent, dangerous societies all have in common? They all have a disproportionate number of the most dangerous personalities and we're just producing way too many of them. And we can't even have an honest conversation about it because the moment you start evangelizing, the moment you're seen as a quote-unquote pro young man, the natural assumption is that means you're anti.
Oh, fantastic. The pipe fit like a glove. Well, like a pipe.
Claiming
It
to be
fit.
trying to get
Idioms, you know?
It's basically thinly veiled misogyny. Referring
little
to women
help?
as bitches. We gotta
Anyone?
own the bitches. We gotta
Wealthy
get out
and
and take my
dashing
class for
philanthropists in
$49
need
a
of
month and get the money and
assistance.
put the bitches in their place. You're like, Jesus Christ. That's what young men are
we should pay attention because the longer this happens, the more it becomes a news. On the extreme end of the spectrum, there's a belief that men will become obsolete, but most sane people understand that men and women need each other. We understand the traits that both possess, and both are more than necessary for a functional society. The truth is that the system is failing, and it's been failing for an incredibly long time. And nowhere is this more noticeable than the modern education system. Over the past 15 years, the crisis among young men in the classroom has been discussed in small circles, but the conversation is growing rapidly. Male performance in school has been a real issue. But the thing is, this change might be a lot older than you realize. Let's start with Instagram.
I wish I hadn't run away!
In academia started in the 1970s in the US. It was after a landmark piece of legislation called Title I. It prohibits discrimination in educational programs and activities receiving federal funding. Similar laws were also passed in the UK and Canada in the 1970s. And of course, this was definitely a step in the right direction for educational equality, but it had an unintended consequence.
I can't tell what's blood and what's oil!
Men had already made it. From here on out, the majority of resources should be directed towards improving schooling and opposite gender. Richard Reeves, who had been studying the gaps in development for years, says that this isn't really a battle of genders, at least not entirely. It's a consequence of neglect. For a long time, young boys were seen as being
away!
The focus was on uplifting young men in education, and that's fine, that's great. But while that goal was being worked towards, young men silently started to slip. According to the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, enrollment rates signal a sign of success. On the plus side, the gaps between young men and women are starting to narrow. But conversely, and what they fail to mention, is that male enrollment is visibly starting to stagnate or even become worse, especially for primary education. The gap for university enrollment is almost at 10% for half of European countries. It doesn't matter if it's Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sweden, or elsewhere. Virtually everywhere in the West sees more females enrolled in university than men. I think that's great, but most reasonable people agree that opening the gates of success for everyone is a good thing. Our focus here in this episode is that the trajectory of males isn't looking good. There's a concerning and significant gap in performance as far back as elementary school, and women consistently outpace men in college attendance. A New York Times survey found both male and female teenagers, when talking about those closest to them, say this. 2/3 of both genders agree that the young men that they study with are more disruptive, lack leadership skills, and have difficulty relating to teachers in the classroom. Unfortunately, even when young boys are growing up at home before school, they're not being educated to the same extent either, especially when it comes to literacy. It's not a hard and fast rule, but a recent study from Collins found that, quote, only 29% of boys aged 0 to 2 are read to daily or nearly daily, compared to 44% of girls of the same age. Other studies show that fathers are less likely to read to their sons than their daughters, and that both parents are less likely to encourage boys to read at all. As a result, boys tend to read less, choose simpler books, and struggle to finish them, all of which affects their reading comprehension and their academic readiness, but surprisingly, also their empathy and pro-social behavior. And this is something that a lot of parents don't even realize they're facilitating. The academic readiness gap is something that we discovered first because it's measurable. We can see it in test scores,
I'm
graduation
stalkers.
rates,
My
and
butler
class
went to factory.
participation. However, the social
Before all
component is
this,
often overlooked.
I'm told.
Girls can just play with their toys
Before
all
all
day,
this,
and
I'm
that's fine.
told.
Less value being placed on young male development is already showing unfavorable results from millennials. And now that the oldest members of Gen Z are approaching 30 years of age, we're already beginning to witness an emergence of a male class that is uniquely isolated and unable to properly interact with the outside world. So what can we say about future generations in the next 10 to 20 years? If we're not careful, we could see more generations of full-grown men, aimless, living alone, or debating with themselves about the future, like the Morneau brothers at the start of this episode. So the question is, how do we fix this? Well, here's a quick-fire round of solutions to get us out of this mess. Number 1, early intervention. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research states to prioritize reading in years 1 to 4, where boys fall behind first. Number 2, too. Consistent routines, family outreach, and in-school tutoring helped attendance according to the Education Policy Institute. Number 3. Mentoring and social-emotional coaching for teenage boys is another angle. For example, Chicago's Becoming a Man program cut violent crime arrests by 45 to 50% and lifted on-time graduation by 12 to 19%. Number 4. A stronger path from school to apprenticeships. High-quality apprenticeships raise employment and earnings, and now, especially with the state universities and AI funds, this could be a bright spot. Programs like Year Up and First Scholarships produce large, sustained earning rates for graduates. Exactly. Number 5. Male-friendly. In Australia, men's shirts reduce isolation and support well-being. Headspace for 12 to 25-year-olds is another option. Finally, number 6. Paternity leave and engaged father. According to childcare, parental leave is also a zone. A father's involvement in childhood rises meaningfully. The downstream benefits of the child's development and schooling follow. That helps the next generation of boys. So what do we make of all this? The truth is, all of the evidence is about how we got here. Some think it's the sole problem, but the experts do also provide some solutions. According to Reeves, there are simple and easy steps that would make an immediate impact on male underperformance.
We need to recruit hundreds of thousands more male teachers, especially in subjects like English, where the boys are struggling so much, and which is the subject men are least likely to teach. And here I think we can draw some really good lessons from the successful Get More Women and Girls in STEM. So that means setting clear targets, supporting public campaigns,
care specialist Erica Thompson. She points to studies showing that single-gender schools produce better education. Mistakes of the past 30 years are prevalent now, but it's not too late to change things for the next generation. Also, if you've watched this whole video and are experiencing anything I've talked about, leave your comment, as it'll be cool to get a community discussion going. As we've seen today, a lot of young men out there are struggling, but one way to get back on your feet if you're struggling professionally is by learning subjects that will give you a leg up. That's where today's sponsor, Brilliant.org, comes in. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, science, data analytics, programming, and AI. For example, they have a course on how AI works. It covers everything from models to neural networks, tokenization, allows you to proven to be 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. I find Brilliant useful for refreshing myself on key subjects. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by teachers and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and
I wish I had run away!
Your own subject, or just for your own self-development to prepare yourself for further studies. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/coldfusion or click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% annual break Hey guys, thanks for watching the whole way through the video. Really appreciate it, and also appreciate all the support over all the years. It's been amazing. If you do want to watch something else societal related, I've done a video on the loneliness
I wish I hadn't run away.
It goes to show that it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's a pretty important thing. But I think that's about it from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again soon for the next one. Cheers.
Maybe it's you should say I wanted to say thank you for taking the Please feel that as a reference to the future.
I can't tell what's blood and what's oil.
Welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. The year is 2035, and this is a snapshot of your life. Every office is run by AI. Every corporate presentation, email, slideshow, all generated by AI. Every question in the office is met with frantic typing. Every answer is copied into reports. Most of the songs in the AI generated.
I wish I hadn't run away.
Cinemas are produced in a few days, using artificial intelligence, of course. Studying the past, students must only learn to use their domain-specific AI tools. And you get it by now, because everything you need in this new world is in the last century, this all would have sounded a little cartoonish, but in 2025, it's pretty easy to see how this all could happen. With this technology seemingly based on every tech that we use today, are we going to slowly stop relying on our brains? Will we stop solving problems ourselves? Over the next decade, will AI gradually solve problems, rendering us incapable of thinking for ourselves? In other words, is AI?
I wish I hadn't run away. I'm sorry.
But before we get started, just for your information, Cold Fusion episodes are now available on Spotify, so you can watch them there if you prefer. To be clear, AI is doing some incredible things in science, physics, and medicine, but the story here is about consumer-grade AI, the run-of-the-mill stuff that today is known as AI slop. Something to keep in mind throughout this episode is the word overuse. That's the thing here. And don't worry, this video isn't completely negative. At the end, I'll share some tips on how to avoid the pitfalls of AI use. To keep things off context-wise and to set the tone for the episode, let's start with the fundamental problem. It's about the human brain naturally adapts to technology. I'm going to start with an app that most of us use, Google Maps. A 2020 study found that despite heavy GPS use can weaken spatial data. Funnily enough, those impaired didn't believe that they had a poor sense of direction, even though the data proved otherwise. As we all know, convenience often comes at a price. And these simple GPS systems aren't even AI. It's just an app on your phone that helps with directions. But yet, overuse can damage our memory. As we'll later see in this episode, AI is a whole different kettle of fish. Meanwhile, around the same time as the study, 5 years ago, a professor by the name of David Raffo had become increasingly concerned with the quality of his students' written assessments. The academic structure was weak. The whole faculty could tell that the students were disinterested. Then suddenly, during the pandemic, he noticed that the writing quality of a number of his students improved significantly. But the professor smelled a rat. Something felt off. A slight improvement made more sense. The leap was so extreme that it felt unnatural. Raffo decided to ask his students directly. Upon his discovery that they were using AI, he remarked, quote, "I realized it was the tools that improved their writing and not their writing skills. Skills being the operative word here." The Portland professor didn't outright shame the use of AI, but he did say it was a mixed bag. Quote, "AI enables us to get work done quickly and efficiently by rapidly gathering and organizing information across written communications, developing designs, and providing suggestions on how to address difficult issues and problems." But he added a caveat, quote, "Our mental and cognitive abilities are like muscles, so they need to be regularly used to remain strong and vibrant. Truly, it would take an extraordinary person to have the discipline necessary to stay mentally strong and vibrant when engaging with the technologies that are available." End quote. And that's an interesting point to consider. With the chronic overuse of artificial intelligence, would there be a kind of mental atrophy and a lack of cognitive exercise? And furthermore, as he states, it's important to resist the temptation of using this atrophy. This conversation to prevent dementia.
50% of people that live to the age of 85, if you looked at their brains, half of them would have Alzheimer's disease. Not everyone gets the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease at 85, but they'd have the pathology. Now, things you can do to lessen the symptoms of Alzheimer's are moving your brain, challenging your brain, because high cognitive ability gives you strength, brain resilience against these diseases. So even if you have pathology, you can circumvent the areas of injury, the areas that aren't working well, and not experience the symptoms. So that's one thing.
Knowing that information, this next clip highlights the exact applications we don't want to encourage.
You guys may have noticed I snuck a peek back at the shelf a moment ago. I wasn't paying attention, but let's see if Gemini was. Hey, did you happen to catch the title of the white book that was on the shelf behind me?
The White Book is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
That is absolutely right.
Are you carrying the latest edition of Vanini's Landmark Guide? It goes for if you can get it, but you're in luck. Wish you...
Something that has been quite prevalent in the 21st century. In fact, there's actually a wide range of studies on the effects of using calculators for basic maths, or autocorrect damaging students' ability to punctuate.
Best of luck to you.
So when it comes to systems such as ChatGPT, Llama, Grok, and other language models that do the actual thinking for us, you can see now that we're stepping into uncharted territory. By now, we've probably heard that all things clerical or repetitive are expected to be replaced by AI, and this includes jobs like data entry, bookkeeping, and customer service. Well, in some ways, that shift has already begun, and the results are worrying. Aside from generating being factually wrong, a new study showed how increased reliance on AI resulted in a phenomenon known as cognitive offloading, basically using external tools, resources, or systems to reduce the mental effort expelled for tasks. They surveyed over 600 participants across multiple demographics to see how AI affected their critical thinking skills. They noted that, quote, frequent AI users were more likely to offload mental tasks, relying on the technology for problem solving and decision making, rather than engaging in independent critical thinking. Over time, participants who relied heavily on AI tools demonstrated reduced ability to critically evaluate information or develop nuanced conclusions, end quote. Believe it or not, this has already started to affect the way society functions, even when it comes to administering justice. In 2023, the Detroit Police Department was notified about a liquor store robbery. The surveillance footage was poor, so with the limited information, the department turned to a facial recognition vendor called DataWorks Plus, a criminal database manager founded 25 years ago. They now use AI to make law enforcement easier. When the scan of the footage was completed, the AI facial recognition analysis pinged an image from a 2015 mugshot. It was of Portia Woodruff. She'd been arrested previously for an expired license. When the police arrived to arrest Portia, she was reasonably surprised. She pointed to her stomach, as she was 8 months pregnant at the time. Definitely in no shape to commit a violent felony. Acting solely based on DataWorks analytics, the police wrongly arrested her, which led to Portia suffering from dehydration and labor complications. Ultimately, the case was dismissed due to insufficient evidence. But sadly, this isn't even the first time that even just the Detroit Police Department has succumbed to cognitive offloading when investigating crimes. They currently have 3 lawsuits and arrests based on the use of DataWorks AI, and are arguing such cases. It might seem obvious, the police were just being negligent, but the issue is much bigger. This technology is being sold as a reliable alternative, and that's the real problem. People trust AI, and it makes life easier. Just like in the GPS study, the effects are hard to notice when it becomes part of our daily routine. It's the convenience. It's so tempting. But hey, want to see cognitive offloading in action? Just head over to X/Twitter and look at the replies to tweets. Over there, you'll see people asking the Grok AI to explain the simplest of posts. Many users simply can't be bothered thinking for themselves anymore. They would rather trust an AI to find the answer. What the text perceived as progress is up to you. Now that being said, I could see how social media could be useful to save time. And asking the AI to explain simple posts is a bit worrying. But even if you think the kind of person to do that, there's something interesting beyond this that the rest of us can do. When you think about it, we're all surrendering to algorithms for decision making. Think of how algorithms work on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and even YouTube. It's even possibly taken down to the fact of the matter is that today, people tend to surrender their agency all the time. They simply don't realize it. The more we rely on these algorithms, the less we ask ourselves what we actually want. Ultimately, the algorithm decides, not us. Alex Jones from the channel Technology Connections calls this algorithmic complacency.
I want to talk about how we decide what we want to watch and do on the internet. Because, well, I'm not sure we realize just how infrequently we actually do for ourselves these days. I'm going to be focusing on something which feels new and troubling. I'm starting to see evidence that an increasing number of folks actually prefer to let a computer program decide what they will see when they log on, even when they know they have alternatives. I felt it was I've chosen to call it algorithmic complacency. Think for a moment about what your experience on the internet is like these days. If you're old enough, how it differs from a couple of decades ago. The internet used to only exist through a web browser on a desktop computer, maybe a laptop if you're fancy. It was back then, it was just a happy little search engine which helped you find websites. And when you found a cool website which you liked, you'd use your web browser to bookmark that website. That would make sure you could get back to it later without having to search for it again, like writing a note to yourself. In other words, the internet was still very manual, and you were in charge of navigating it and curating your own experience with it.
For the generations entering adulthood in the 2020s, they tend to trust